sent us out their all-new Icebox Cold Air Intake for the 2024 and up Ford Mustang GT and Dark Horse. We have a completely sealed air box, so there's no way that any of that nasty hot air coming from your engine can be sucked into your intake tract and mess up all your performance gains. It's also made from the XPLE material so that it's super strong and super heat resistant, so that even the air that's pulling from the front half of the vehicle is going to be this nice cool air, and it's going to stay nice and cool thanks to that heat resistant material. What's going on, Team Lethal fans? It's Joe here with Lethal Performance. Today, we've got a package here, as you can see, from our friends over at CPE. Now, they went ahead and sent us out their all-new Icebox Cold Air Intake for the 2024 and up Ford Mustang GT and Dark Horse. And, of course, we're going to open it up, show you guys what's all included in the kit, and then, of course, show you how it's installed on a 2024 Mustang. So, without further ado, let's go ahead, crack this box open here, and show you guys the goods. Now, before I dive into the kit here, I will make a note that CPE does an excellent job of packaging all of these items in the kit here before they send it out the door. They have all of the individual pieces, the components, the bolts, the fittings, everything all individually packaged so that you can easily check it in and you don't have to rip anything open before you need it. Essentially, if you need some of these screws here, all you have to do is make a little slit in the bag and all you have is just those screws. Everything's not all mixed together. It's not all this big random clump of parts. You have it nicely organized before you even start the project, so that's obviously a really nice touch, especially for someone who's going to be installing this at home in their driveway. Now, breaking into the kit here, we have their custom designed air boxes that still utilize the factory Ford air inlets that are integrated into the front bumper. Now, Ford obviously designed these to be the best location to pull in cool, fresh air into the air intake system, so obviously CPE is just going to utilize that system and make it a bit more efficient. Now, moving down from the air boxes, we of course have their intake tubes here, which just like the air boxes are going to help increase the flow of air going through before it hits your intake manifold, and that's all going to be thanks to their patented D-flow filters here and the roto-molding technology that they use to manufacture these pieces, which gives the inside a nice smooth finish so that there's no turbulence for the air to get caught up on. Now, these intake tubes start out at about 5 inches where they connect to the filter here, and they have to neck down to mate up to the throttle bodies on the car. They go from about 5 inches to 3 inches here where the throttle body mates up. Now, most of you guys may look at that and think to yourself that that looks like a bit of a restricting piece, but if you look at the stock air intake, that's where the real restriction's happening, where you have all these bumps and ridges and nastiness that creates a lot of air turbulence and ultimately slows the air down quite a bit before it reaches your intake manifold. Luckily, they do use that roto-molding technology in these intake tubes, so even though it is necking down to that 3 inch before it hits the throttle body, it's such a smooth neck down that there's no turbulence happening with the airflow, at least not anywhere near as bad a turbulence as compared to the stock air intake tubes. Now, you may notice that these intake tubes will still be using the stock MAF sensor, which is obviously going to be a good thing for you guys out there, considering there's still no tuning available yet for these cars. So with the stock MAF sensor in place and in the correct position, these will throw no check engine lights, no issues whatsoever with the car, and will work without a tune. Now, the material that both the airbox and the intake tubes are made from is what CPE calls XPLE plastic, which they have claimed to be an extremely strong material as well as extremely temperature resistant. So ultimately, this plastic alone is going to help keep your intake air temps down by a bunch, simply because it's not going to suffer from heat soak as bad as many other plastics may. Now, another note with these air boxes here is that they're going to be completely sealed off from all of the air in the engine bay, and how they accomplish that is by basically, once you install the filter and have everything installed on the car, they give you these plexiglass covers here, which essentially bolt down to the top of the air boxes. Now, with that, being that it's plexiglass, it's going to be completely clear. So not only are you going to have a completely sealed off unit here, but you're going to be able to even check the condition of the filter just by simply looking through the glass in your engine bay, so you don't even have to take anything apart to simply check on your air filters, which I think is a pretty slick design. The kit comes with all the hardware you'd need to get this kit installed onto your car, including all of the clamps, the adapters, the filters, and every little piece of hardware that's needed to assemble this kit. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the car and show you guys what this piece looks like installed on a 2024 Mustang GT. All right, so now that we're outside with the car here, we can go ahead and get started on the install. Now, as you guys just heard, the car is really quiet with the stock intake. There's really not much induction noise here with that stock intake. Hopefully, we're gonna increase that with the Icebox intake here from CPE. So let's go ahead and get started here by removing the stock intakes and installing the CPE Icebox. The first step on CPE's installation is to remove these sensors from the map housings. All you have to do to remove the harness from each side is pull back on this white tab, pinch it, and pull back up. Next, of course, you're going to want to remove the harness here from the intake tube itself, which is held in by a little push tab here that you should be able to pry up with a plastic pry tool or a small screwdriver. Next, CPE has us remove these two PCV connections here, which are going to be done by pushing the tabs here that are on the top. This one here is a slightly different style than the passenger side one, but all you have to do is feel for a little blue tab in the back here, push back on that, and then just, of course, pull back. Now, using a 10mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove the two 10mm bolts that are holding the intake tube here to the airbox. Next, we can go ahead and take a 7mm socket here and loosen these worm clamps here. Now we can go ahead and pop off these covers here so that we can get the intake tubes and filter assemblies out of the car. These should just pop right off. As you can see right there, one whole tube out of the car. Driver's side, out of the car. Now with the filter and tubes out of the way, we can go ahead and start with the removal of the bottom half of the air boxes here, which is going to be started with a 10mm bolt right here. Now with the 10mm bolt removed, this should just slide right out. Keep in mind this little tube here that hooks the intake to the front of the car. The same can be now done on the passenger side. However, do be careful of the positive terminal here on the fuse box, and they also have us remove this relay here to make the install of the new airbox a bit easier. So let's go ahead and get that 10mm bolt out. Now, if we use a small screwdriver here and pop that relay out of place, it gives us some more room here to get that airbox out. All right. Just like that, the passenger side airbox is now out. Now that we have the stock intake out of the car, we can go ahead and start with the CPE intake here, starting off with these studs here. Now these mounting studs are going to screw right into the bottom of each of the airboxes here on either one, and they are also going to get a grommet from the stock intake to mount it into the vehicle. You can go ahead and tighten those down with a 10mm open end wrench when you get a chance. Now from each of the stock intakes, we're going to go ahead and remove this grommet here. You should be able to just pull it off by hand and slide it onto the new intake. Like that. Same thing with this one, as you can see, and it pops onto the new one, just like that. Next thing you're going to want to do is install these brackets here onto the back side of the airboxes here using the supplied hardware with the kit. It's going to be the smaller screws here and the shorter of the two smaller screws. You're going to want to go ahead and use one of the lock washers there that they supply with the kit to secure it here to the back of this bracket. These bolts will tighten using a 2.5mm Allen key. The brackets are going to install this way here so that the tabs are facing down. Two more short screws and a bracket. Now with these supplied grommets, we can go ahead and insert into the new tubes here. Again, these are new, supplied with the intake kit. There are two of these, each a different size for their specific holes, so there is no possible way that you can install these incorrectly. Now with the grommets installed, we can go ahead and install the barbs here. You want to make sure to leave the appropriate amount of space there for the fitting to actually latch on to the barb. Same with this other smaller one here. Just go ahead and insert it up into the point where the barb can grab. where the fitting can grab that barb. Next thing we need to go ahead and transfer from the stock intakes is going to be these MAF sensors here, which are going to use a T20 Torx bit. However, we are not going to reuse these screws here or these bolts, and we can go ahead and screw them back into the stock housings. Make sure that you install the passenger tube and the driver side MAF sensor on the driver's side tube. This one here being the passenger side tube. CPE does give these nice adapters here that basically slide onto each MAF sensor here to make sure that there is a good seal on the sensor itself. And these are going to install using those other longer Allen key bolts here. Again, don't forget those lock washers. Again, these will use a 2.5mm Allen key. And you just want to verify with that arrow there that the flow is going towards the throttle bodies, which on this, being the passenger side intake, it does. We can go ahead and repeat this process on the driver's side intake tube. There's the MAF sensor. There you go, fully assembled there, making sure the arrow is going the correct direction out towards those throttle bodies. Now with everything in the current assembly status, we can go ahead and install the air boxes into the car. Now before installing the new CPE air boxes, we went ahead and removed this inlet here off of the stock air boxes, and we're gonna go ahead and reinstall that on the car rather than on the new air boxes. It makes it a bit easier to get the air boxes installed with the assembly together. All right, everything appears to be fitting where it needs to be. We can go ahead and reinstall this 10mm bolt here in the back. Now again, same drill with that air inlet there. Just remove it from the stock air box and slide it back into place on the car. And go ahead and install your air box here now. Should slide into place pretty easily here. All right, now with that air box back in its place, we can go ahead and reinstall that 10mm bolt just like we did on the other side. Now we can go ahead and drop the new filters into place here. Very nice. Same thing with the passenger side here. You want to make sure to install them with the bolt for the worm clamp facing up so that you can tighten it down in that housing. Using the provided silicone adapter and worm clamps, go ahead and slide that adapter onto the throttle body and install your intake tube. Make sure the tube is fully inserted into the filter. Using the provided brackets in the kit, go ahead and mount the tube to the air box. These are going to use those last sets of Allen key bolts that you have, along with the lock washers. You could install these brackets with the intake tube still off of the car. However, it's not super difficult to install it while it's on the car. Basically, just if you know the tips here, to go ahead and wrap your arm around this little pocket here, screw these in through the back. It's really not that hard to do it on the car. However, it would be much easier to do it off the car. Easy peasy. Now with all of the brackets in place, you can go ahead and tighten down all of the worm clamps on this assembly. All right, that intake tube is on. While we're still on this driver's side here, we can go ahead and plug in the harness and go ahead and plug in this port here. It's clicked into place. You want to definitely make sure not to push the barb into the intake here. Just go ahead and put a little bit of pressure there so that it doesn't push on. But as you can see, it's fully clicked on, fully in place. And this side's pretty much almost done, apart from this cover here. Righty, now on to this side here. We can go ahead and slide that silicone adapter onto the throttle body. And then slide on our intake tube. All right, just like the other side, we can go ahead and start installing those brackets. Now we can go ahead and tighten up those last worm clamps here and go ahead and install the cover. We can go ahead and put this relay back in place over here, and we can go ahead and install the CPE lid. Always a good idea to do a quick double check of your work to make sure that everything's tightened down and in place. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for the CPE Icebox Cold Air Intake, all installed here on this 2024 Ford Mustang GT. Now, if you guys have any questions or you want to check out this intake for yourself, feel free to click the link in our description or drop a comment below and we'll do our best to answer your questions. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach us at 561-753-8105 or by email at support@lethalperformance.com. This has been Joe with Lethal Performance, and I'm out. Oh no! Filter on the loose. I want to take a second to thank our Lethal employees here for letting us use their vehicle for install. However, I am starting this at 3:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, and it probably won't get done, and poor buddy will be stuck with a car that's disassembled. Just kidding, I'll get it done. Sorry, Smalls. Hope you weren't looking forward to go home today. Oh no, my Allen key. That's on the ground. Oh, nice. Just a little reminder that grommets suck. And don't be afraid to use a little bit of spit. And in conjunction, darn. Oh no, there's hardware everywhere. Do it on the car, however, it would be much easier to do it on the car. It would be much easier to do it off the car.